Good evening, council members. We'll start with the first quarter financial results for the city of Brookings. The first slide, we talk about our tax revenue for the first quarter. The table on the top left shows our type of sales tax, and then the second column is our budgeted amounts. The third column is our historically prorated amount of where we should be at the end of the first quarter. Then the fourth column is the year-to-date actuals. The fifth column is the difference, favorable or unfavorable in negative numbers, and then the percentage of variance between the two. So the story here is that sales tax has performed better than budget by 2.2%. The chart on your right shows the performance versus budget. It's positive. However, versus last year is negative 6%. We believe that the year-over-year comparison is because we had a strong first quarter last quarter because we still didn't have any budget impact at that point of time. If we keep moving down the table, we see the property tax that is performed better than historically, although this is not a real increment, it's just a matter of timing. So we would consider that to be within expectations. At the end of the year, the city's tax revenues are about 5% ahead of budget at the end of the first quarter, or $190,000. Diving deeper into the sales tax by industry to get a better grasp on our local economy, we see that year-over-year declines in construction, manufacturing, and transportation industry have been mostly offset by gains in the wholesale trade, services, and finance, and insurance, and real estate sectors. That's your table on your right. According to some local experts consulting for this, in terms of expectations going forward, the U.S. economy is expected to rebound by 6.5% from the previous year. And we believe that our regional economy is going to rebound at a higher pace, driven mostly by stronger inflation readings. People are saving more, and we have additional stimulus in the horizon, as well as higher agricultural and commodity prices. So if you would like additional sales tax information, this can be found in the city's performance management dashboard, which you can access through the following link. This dashboard includes a 12-month performance by month for sales tax by industry, and also information on remote seller tax or internet tax. Moving on to the general fund, which, as a reminder, funds all the general services of the city. We have the expenditures on the first column, and it follows the same format to end up with the revenue, favorable or unfavorable, all the way to the right. The story here that at the end of Q1, the total general fund expense is at 21.6% of total budget, which represents a $98,000 surplus versus budget. The large part of this surplus is attributed to vacancies in the street and police departments. In addition, also good news on the revenue side, we're coming in $56,000 higher than what we were expected. This is driven by just higher revenues driven by bank franchise and override taxes. So in summary, it's been a good, strong quarter for the general fund in terms of revenue and expenses. Our next slide shows the other funds of the city. We'll start by the CIP, which is our capital project fund. On the top left is the first row. It's right now it's at 7.1% of budget, which a total spend of around $791,000. This number looks a little bit higher than in previous years just because of the purchase of the truck engine in early this year. So when we compare it to the historical purchase, it's unfavorable, but it's not a real unfavorability. As a reminder, Q1 is usually a very low activity on these funds just due to weather. The chart on your right tells you the split of what has been actually implemented within the capital fund. We have the biggest spend has been the fire department truck, then we'll have vehicles, street and sidewalk projects, and then all other projects. And lastly, I'd like to highlight that in the grand total, the city as a whole is currently at 13.7% of their budget. It looks as unfavorable just because of the timing of issues, but it's well within our projections. As a good benchmark also at this point in time, which would be at 25% of our expense. So 13.7% is a good number, and we don't see any red flags going forward with the city financials. The next slide shows the income statement for the Swiftfield Center as requested by City Council. We present this every quarter. The far left column just has the revenue and expenses. Then the next three columns are the ones that I like to focus on. The first one is the year-to-date actual performance, then the year-to-date budget, and then the difference between the two of those is our third column. So during this quarter, COVID has materially impacted the Swiftfield Center with the revenue being reduced by 70%. They had very little activity, or about $682,000 less revenue than projected. Due to this, the city, the center staff has proactively reduced its expenses by about 50%, or $451,000, which you can see at the second to bottom row, including personnel adjustments. However, despite these efforts, the operation is currently running at a $230,000 deficit from budget. Good news is that April activity has been rebounding, and the Swiftfield staff is expected to rebound, hopefully getting more events to offset the deficit by the end of the year. And again, the city and the Swiftfield Center's leadership are constantly working on evaluating their business plan to try to meet budget this year. Now, going forward, as a reminder, when we were budgeting for 2021, our tax revenue, we're still in the middle of COVID and we didn't know what was going to happen. So we were very conservative in terms of our budget. And just a reminder to the general public, our first and second penny, for example, budget was 66% of recovery from the expected reduction in 2020. Our 3B was only 50% recovery, and our bid hotel was also 50% recovery. That's why you see some of the numbers, even though sometimes they're lower than last year, they're ahead of budget because of that. But in good news, April tax was just released last week, and it came strong, at about 16% higher than the previous year. And that puts the last two tables, the table on the left below has the first and second penny sales tax, and they're sitting at around 3.5% ahead of last year and 6% ahead of budget. Our 3B is pretty much flat year over year, but it's around 8% ahead of budget. And our bid tax is still below last year, but it's around 18% ahead of budget. Next, moving on to the City Council priority list. As a reminder for everybody, these are the City Council priority projects that would be funded by unassigned general fund funds or reserves. So this changed from last time in terms that we're almost to the end of our 2020 financial audit, so we have a better estimate of where we're going to end up in terms of available revenue to fund this project. Right now, we forecast that we will be at $11.8 million. We take a little bit of a contingency factor since the audit has not been finalized, so we start our funding with $10.6 million. Then next one on the left is the City Council approved projects, and this was approved at the time of the budget. We approved $1.4 million for capital improvements to the city facilities. That leaves us with a $9.2 million balance to fund our primary projects. Our primary projects have not been officially funded, but they're the next in line, and they're in order and priority in this list. Also, we got the 2022 facility improvements by $1.1 million, the fire department training tower, $440,000, the public safety center by $7 million, the housing study at $25,000, the food bank for $300,000, the downtown master plan for $35,000, and the indoor rec facility for $850,000. The total unapproved primary projects add up to be $9.8 million. With that, if we were to fund all of them, we would run out of money. The projects on the right side are the secondary and then the desired projects that I just listed for your reference, and that would be next in line if we ever get more funds. This list will be revised after we finalize the audit and we re-engage city leadership, and we can propose changes to it as well. And lastly, I would like to announce that the city's finance report for 2019 has recently received the Excellence Award. This award is given by the Government Finance Officers Association, and it's awarded to local and state governments that go above and beyond the minimum required, just in seeking more transparency and full disclosure. It is the highest form of recognition in government accounting and financial reporting. With that, I would like to credit the finance staff of the city, Brenda, Gwen, and Ashley. They do a terrific job, and they put so much attention to detail to every activity that they do that ends up being in our financials. So kudos to them, and just wanted to present you with this award as well. With that, I'll stand by for questions.
Holly, please.
I don't have a question. I just want to congratulate you and the rest of the finance team on the award. I think that's a wonderful accomplishment for our community, and I think it shows how much we really want the public to engage and understand what our budget looks like. So congratulations and thank you for the hard work.
Thank you.
Joel?
Yeah, I just want to echo her comments. I thought that award is a really big deal. And from Paul to you and your team, I think you guys are done and are continuing to do a wonderful job. So thank you for all you do. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Nick?
Thank you, Mayor. Eric, I had a question on what is your slide 4, I think the general fund chart that you provided.
Yes.
Can you clarify for me the line item that we call county reimbursement? It had a pretty large delta, and I was wondering if you could define what that expense is and where the difference is.
Yes, and this is where we back bill the county. The city pays up front for most of the expenses, but we split them 52-49 expenses. So sometimes it's off for budget just for the timing of billing, but that's what it is.
Patty, do you have any comments?
No,
I do.
everybody's answered my questions.
Okay. I do have one question, or maybe we can kind of explain to the public a little bit. There's $7 million that is ear tagged for the Public Safety Center. Can we kind of elaborate on that, what that's all entails?
Sure. So as part of the City Council financial policy projects, we've identified from staff to City Council a desire to renovate the police department. We've done an initial analysis here about a year and a half ago with McKinstry to look at that facility. We brought in a team of engineers. They provided a highly level analysis that showed for renovating the facility, it would cost about $7 million to completely reconstruct the facility on a new site with a new facility. It would cost closer to $14 million. Very conservative numbers, once again, almost 2 years ago, so you'd have to escalate that for today's costs. Rather than going out to a vote of the people to build a brand new facility and increasing property tax dollars, we have been able to save money over this last year through the efforts of our staff and projects to have roughly $7 million cash in hand to be able to do this project without having to increase property tax dollars. So we're going to recommend moving forward with initial analysis. DJ, our Public Works Director, will oversee the project along with Dave, and moving forward with that project with hopefully engineers' estimates, bidding projects and process later this fall, winter, with potential construction next spring, depending on what we get back for quotes.
All right. Thank you.